Oh gosh. Sorry guys about that. I was having a little technical difficulty. Whew. Panic there for a moment because I totally forgot how to go live on a scheduled live stream. And, and it was easier than I thought. So, well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. Last night I sat down and technically I'm able to uh, actually go through my Zoom and broadcast from Zoom, but for some reason I'm not able to get that connected. So sat down and 23, actually 24 old-fashioned note cards later. Um, yay. Robin, great, welcome. 24 old-fashioned note cards later, I have our workshop here. So bear with me while I read my note cards. I'm so glad for those of you who are here live, please go ahead and chat in. I really want this to be kind of a combination of being able to talk a little bit in a structured way about deconditioning and what it is, and the stages of deconditioning, and the steps, the optimal things that you can be doing at various stages to really bring about your awakening process through the human design deconditioning process. Yay, Carrie, yay, Maya, great, welcome. I want to start first by letting you guys know, or reminding you, that this is our 1,200 subscriber celebration, YouTube exclusive. I didn't even put this out to my list, and we're unlisted here. So I'm going to keep this version unlisted for all of you who are here and want to chat in and do all of that. So it's sort of a self-contained group. I will probably take some of this recording, if it's halfway decent, and use it for other things, but not our sharing part here. So feel free to chat in as we go. Now, because this is a 1,200 subscriber celebration, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. And I was thinking about what else I could do as part of the celebration. And because we're talking about deconditioning, and for a lot of people it can be really challenging. This whole process can be pretty challenging, and there's a need for support along the way. I decided last night that I would offer, for those of you who signed up for this version of the workshop, a 2-session support package, which is basically a buy one, get one free kind of a deal of 2 45-minute sessions for $120. So when you get your email follow-up, I'll make sure that I give you the link in the process for getting that if you feel like you need more support along the way. I just want to be able to really support you, because you have so supported me throughout these months and years. And I know 1,200 isn't a lot, but it is a lot for me. And I really feel like quality in terms of people who follow me is really more important than quantity. And I feel so enriched by your presence and your support of this channel and of me. So thank you again. All right, so we are going to talk about what deconditioning is according to human design, the stages of deconditioning, and my note cards are here, and the steps to deconditioning. So I want to know, first of all, how many of you are new to human design? Like you just got your chart last week, or you just discovered this thing about strategy and authority the last month or whatever? How many of you are new? And how many of you have been in this deconditioning journey for a while? And if so, how many years do you feel like you've been working with this? Okay, so Maya discovered it in May. Hi, Dorothy. I didn't greet you. Welcome. So is there anyone here who is like 3.5 years in, 4 to 5 years? Great, Carrie. Yeah, awesome. Since about March or April. Great, great. So we've got someone who is a little further along, and then we've got a few people who are fairly new to the process. And I'm going to talk a lot about those first stages because I think it's important to get off on the right foot and to get really grounded in what it is you need to know. I do want to mention that initially I was going to add the part about decision-making authority because that was requested, but I put out a video a little while ago saying that I realized that was just going to be too much and too overwhelming. So let's just keep it at this 24 note cards later workshop. So we've got some people here who are fairly new, have been introduced to human design within the year, and then we've got Carrie. Carrie, I'm going to rely on you for some of your input about sharing your experiences of being a little bit further along as we move forward. So let's start by talking about what deconditioning is. And I looked up, for some reason, I love to look up online what the common, the Merriam-Webster definition, or what the common definitions are for some of the terms that we use in human design, because it actually helps me to make better sense of some of these nebulous, obtuse, I don't know, esoteric types of terms, to kind of bring them down to like a regular life level. So some of the definitions that spoke to me were reform, and I put that in quotations because it sounds so severe. Reforming. Deconditioning is about reforming and reversing previously conditioned behaviors. So that's one definition. And another one is the process of abandoning a habitual mode of thinking. And I thought this was really pertinent to the human design deconditioning process, because it's really all about understanding the mind's place in the body-mind experience and freeing the mind to be in the place where it can really see and learn from the journey of the body. So on this body graph, and I'll use the ones show you one from my current program that I'm using, because it actually is, it does say, a lot of the traditional charts will say on the right side of your chart personality, and then on the left in the red design. But this one actually outlines the black on your chart as mind, and the red as body. And I feel like that's more accurate for what we're looking at here, of the mind-body experience. And you can also look at this conscious personality mind aspect of you, that is your birth imprint, as the little parts of your soul facets that are coming through in this human body experience to learn its lessons, to gain its wisdom, and to grow. So but in order to do that, it needs to understand that all it has to do is to sit back and be the passenger in the body experience of life, because the body is really what it's all about here. The human body is in those higher planes where the broader aspects of our soul awareness is. We don't have bodies. We can't create from the density that we have on this planet, and we can't we don't have that traction to really move through experiences that will call forth more growth for us. So having a body, a vehicle to take these soul aspects of us through life, is really how we can get those broader perspective lessons that benefit our eternal nature, so to speak. So without getting too much more esoteric about that, that's what we're kind of doing with the human design deconditioning process, restoring the mind to where it needs to be so it can see what it needs to see, it can experience what it needs to experience so that our souls grow. And then allowing our bodies to take their rightful place upon the earth plane in a way that is healthy and balanced and optimal for it to function. In human design, we talk about, especially in traditional human design, the self and the not self. And Ra was very, talked a lot in terms of these binaries, that we are these binary beings and we are here to differentiate, and these black and white terms like self and not self, even though sometimes they can feel a little harsh to those of us who are kind of sensitive, are really helpful to help us tease out in a very palpable way what is us and what is not. So self and not self. And on the chart, you know, a lot of times we're looking at self being the colored in areas and the not self being the white areas. And talk about that in terms of the stages of conditioning or stages of deconditioning as we go. But these two terms of self and not self help us to tease those little nuances out as we study or look at our charts and get more clear about who we are and who we're not. And it helps us with the process of discovering our true nature. So the true nature of us, the true nature of our human experience. And I'm going to try hard not to go into those broader concepts of our true soul nature and all of that. That's a topic for another workshop. But the true nature of our human experience is what we experience through our bodies, through our day-to-day experiences, how we show up consistently through our definition. It is our true nature. What is eternal, more or less eternal in our limited human lives here on planet Earth. That's what we're talking about with true nature. And along the way, you know, we can use this as like the groundwork for our the human design definition of deconditioning, the process of discovering our true nature by reversing habitual patterns of behavior and thought that have kept us from living and being who we really are. So we're discovering our true nature, and we're doing that by becoming aware of those habitual patterns, thought patterns, behavior patterns that have really kept us from being this person that we really are. So we all have these learned adaptive patterns. And these patterns we picked up since the time we were born. We may have even inherited them, who knows? And that's as we get to stage 3 and step 3 of this process of deconditioning, we'll talk a little bit about that. But you know, let's just say that from the time we're born, our parents have had expectations on us. Our culture, our society, our family, you know, have placed expectations on us, have allowed us or trained us in ways so that we can fit in. Maybe we have had have drawn conclusions, whether accurate or not, about what we must do and how we must act in order to be loved, in order to stay safe, and in order to survive. Because at our very base nature, we are survival based. And we're here to kind of move through that to put the necessity for survival into context as we begin to evolve our consciousness into that place where we can truly thrive. And the results of these adaptive patterns where we want to stay safe, we want to maybe deny parts of ourselves or fit parts of ourselves into these boxes where we really don't fit in order to survive and to be loved and all of that. The results are can be culminated into one word: suffering, right? Just suffering. And and that, we experience that through unnecessary stress, the way that we kind of contort ourselves to experience unnecessary stress in our lives. And also in human design terms, we experience that through our not self themes that let us know that we are in resistance. So just as a quick recap, I'm sure all of you on this call know what those not self themes are, but as a recap, manifestors experience the not self theme as anger. Generators experience it as frustration. Projectors experience the not self theme as bitterness, and reflectors experience it as disappointment. And ultimately, because we are these body mind beings, when we're in these places of our not self theme or in these places of suffering and unnecessary stress, there can be a decline in the health of our body. When you cut yourself off from the life force that's available for you long enough, or diminish the flow of it because you're trying to fit in a box that isn't made for you, your body is going to suffer. And then your body cannot be that true vibrant vehicle that it's meant to be to carry you through life. So deconditioning is about restoring the power of your blueprint, restoring the power of your human design blueprint, what's really truly on here in the highest aspect of how you can live it out by discovering and reforming. I always think of reform school when I hear that word, reforming, and reforming all of the not-self behaviors and thought patterns that you've developed through your life. So discovering and reforming, or reforming, the reformation, taking on a different form, transforming all of the not-self patterns, behaviors and patterns that you've developed throughout your life. And the result of the deconditioning is that you emit your true frequency through your magnetic monopole. So let's talk about the magnetic monopole for a minute, because everyone has one, whether you have a defined G center or an undefined G center. Everyone has a magnetic monopole right here. And this is where our light shines through. This is where our magnetic resonance is. And this is what kind of draws things to us, attracts things to us, attracts us to certain things in life. And when we are emitting this frequency where we're no longer in resistance, where we truly understand who we're not, and we've let go of those patterns that keep us in this place of being who we're not or acting as who we're not, then we begin to attract the right people, the right environments, so that we can have those experiences that we're really here to have in order for our souls to grow and expand. So then we experience the flip side of that not self theme. And for manifestors, manifestors begin to experience peace. Generators manifesting generators experience satisfaction. Projectors experience success. And reflectors experience surprise. So, yeah, so that's what we're going for here in this whole deconditioning process. Now, you probably have heard in your human design journey so far, the deconditioning takes about 7 years. And I want to explain a little bit about what that means, don't set your timer, anything like that. The background for that is that we, on a biological level, turn over our cells, are always turning over um, our cellular structure, developing new cells, developing new whatever it is that creates our cells over and over again. So every 7 years, we actually kind of have a whole different body. We're living in a whole different body than what we were living in 7 years before. So just imagine, like, think back to the time between the time you were born and your 7th birthday and how different your body was at that time. Or if you're a little older, let's say between 14 and 21, or 21 and 28, and then as we get older, I don't know the math after that, but 39 is 39, 38, 38 would be the next one, and your body changes through those times. So as you're going through the whole human design realignment, retuning, reformation, deconditioning journey, your body is just going to continue to turn over cells anyway. But as you bring this refined awareness about yourself into this natural biological process, you're going to look back 7 years from now and truly, truly, with great awareness, understand that you are not the same person as you were 7 years before. So that's what that's about. Let me see what my notes say here. Yeah, you're living from you're actually kind of a new person, and you're living from your true nature. If you're really seriously taking on this journey, living this journey, and consciously working with your own alignment, you're going to see aspects of your true nature emerge that you may not have even known were there. So is there anyone on the call who is at that, around that 7-year or beyond aspect of this journey? If you are, I'd love to know what your experience is from the first year to the 7th year. What's different? What's different? And I'll tell you what's different in my experience, because I'm probably about 10 years into this, is that about at the 7-year mark, things in my life began to take on a different shape, a different tonal quality, for lack of a better description. And I could see where there were certain aspects of me that of who I thought I was, that really were no longer relevant. And in place of that, some other things began to emerge. And if you've been following my journey for a while, you know that I've been doing human design for a while. I have a background in healing. And then over the past 5 years or so, there has been this movement for me to really start to explore. And this is how it's manifesting on the outside. There's stuff on the inside too that has to do with power and empowerment. But the manifestation on the outside has to do with, being in a different environment, actually physically moving, and really getting grounded in my place of my role of what it is that I need to share around being aligned to the natural world. And it's coming in the form of an orchard, Asian pears. I don't know. I don't really know. And that's okay. I've kind of surrendered to it, because 7 years ago, 10 years ago, I never would have thought that this aspect of agriculture and community and really living in a way that is more aligned and more in tune with the natural world was going to manifest in this way. And it has come from a sense of really being grounded and empowered in my own trusting that, from moment to moment, that because I'm a splenic projector, that the more that I align with me and my power and be me, do me inside, the more that my outer world is going to take the shape that it needs to take. And this is what's happening. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so I'm going to address, Robin, your questions or your comments in a minute. So there are stages to deconditioning. And in my observation, there are about 3 stages, and this is just my observation. Maybe your observation is different. And they're like incremental ways that your true nature begins to reveal itself to you. So in my journey from like year 1, and we'll talk about that in stage 1, and maybe some of you can relate, but my journey with this is, in year 1, I was in a totally different place, where everything where I thought I was going in a certain direction. And I was doing everything that I possibly could to go in that direction. And that direction was around doing more of the healing work that I thought I was supposed to do, that I thought I was here to do, trying to, and for lack of a better term, drinking the Kool-Aid of what popular online marketing was telling us that we had to do in order to make our businesses successful, and not really understanding what it meant to be a projector in my case, and really pushing myself out of alignment, and then beginning, as I started this understanding of my strategy and authority, beginning to see where I was truly pushing myself out of alignment, and how I had been doing that all of my life. And then over the course of my 7+ years of this whole process, step by step, surrendering things that I thought were true about myself that really weren't. Of being the one who has the energy to initiate big projects and sustain them over time. That's not me. you know, and that gets reinforced over and over and over again. Thinking that I have some kind of control over the steps over the opportunities that come to me, by doing something out there in the world. And what I've understood in my own life is that the doing something out there in the world that is really mine to do comes from my own surrender. It comes from surrendering to my inner process, so to speak, or surrendering to over and over again to recognizing that I don't know, and waiting. And as I'm waiting, really tuning into me, into my magnetic monopole, into what feels like me, and holding that frequency so strongly within myself that the outer world has to, what's attracted in my outer world has to be something different. And that's what has happened. And then the actions from that are coming because of the invitations, because for me as a projector, and because of the new opportunities that are creating or inspiring certain things that I know are within my wheelhouse to do. And it's over and over and over again. It's like a learning process. So that's why I say it's incremental. There are incremental ways that your true nature reveals itself to you during this time. So I want to talk about the stages of deconditioning, and I want to, as we go into this, I really want to just remind you or let you know that I have a strategic mind. My mind works in a very strategic and linear way, and this may not be your way. So if it's not your way, take what I say, take how it's ordered, and allow it to reorder itself in the way it needs to be reordered within you. Allow the awareness and the understanding to reorder itself in whatever way it needs to be reordered within you. So your way may not be the linear way, but this is the way I see it because I can't see it any other way. And as we're talking about these steps, we're talking about the optimal times during your deconditioning process. Oh, I have one out of order. Sorry. I'm going, wait a minute. Okay. I want to pause for questions. That's what I really wanted to do to begin with. And I'm like, I have to go through this card. That goes there. Let's talk. Let me just pause and see if there are any questions about all this stuff we've talked about so far about the deconditioning process and the 7 years and all of that. And Robin, I really want to talk to address your comments about no one resists on purpose. It all comes. It can come down to money, and sorry, it did for me. I may have to take a break here in a moment if my animals get wiggy. Sorry. Yeah, no one. When we start talking about these stages, I really want you to pay attention and to the first stage, because that's where you are and that's where I was. Yeah, and money was a big issue for me. Waiting was a big issue for me. And there were things about, there were places where, as a third line profile, where, I discovered a lot of things along the way that didn't work for me as well. And this led me into the deeper surrender, the deeper surrender of really understanding and tapping into that trust of the trust that I needed to build by giving myself permission to be more of who I am. And we'll talk a bit about that, because I know you're a projector and how that works with survival and money. Yeah, the need for money pushes us in the easiest direction, not necessarily the most life enhancing. And I do want to say, because I know that at least most of you on this call are projectors, that this world that was created by generators is something that that we're here to transform. But but a lot of us have come to this understanding about our designs midway in this process of living and trying to conform to this world that was really not created by us or for us. And we're in the middle of this whole process of redefining work, redefining how we create resources, redefining our value in terms of what we do and what we don't do, and what that means for how we pay the rent, and at the same time, collectively, we're all evolving from this consciousness of, this is all there is in the tangible world, and this is all that we have to work with. And the majority of the planet says that we have to do it in a certain way, to really becoming aware that there is more at our access from these broader unseen perspectives of us and the way that we connect on the unseen plane. And that's not the topic for this particular workshop, so I'm going to leave it at that, but just know that there is. And the more that you tune into yourself, and the more that you get grounded in your own process of being you and teasing out, differentiating yourself from your not self, the more that you make that space for that energy of that unseen support to come in, because we're here as projectors to work with that, to use that energy to transform the way things are done on the planet. But it doesn't come from doing things the way that things are done out there. It comes from really knowing how we do it. And that's a process. It's a process that we're all discovering. And we're midway in it, which means that sometimes we have to do things that, because we need to eat, that may not be part of the pure radical experiment of human design, but we incrementally, at least this is my experience, and I know that really pure human design people would burn me at the stake, and I have been burned at the stake for saying sometimes we have to get a job, with the awareness that there are it's just a step. It's a step in realigning. It's a step in keeping the body together, so that we can take the next step. So I know it's frustrating, and it's hard, and a lot of people say just let it all go, and do the radical experiment and just stop and sit on the couch and wait. And if you can do that, awesome. But if you can't, be gentle with yourself and do it step by step, and eventually you'll get there. Our true nature, we should focus on our open and undefined. Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that. Absolutely. Waiting can seem like a luxury. Oh, yay, generator. And a manifester. Yay. Yeah, the work world wasn't made for you either as a manifester. Yeah. Open throat. So, got it. It's not easy. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the pressure. Absolutely. And that actually goes back to um what Maya was saying about the defined and undefined centers, and that's really going to be a workshop for another time too. But I'll talk a little bit about that. Found out the hard way. Yeah. If you want to talk a little bit about that, Dorothy, about what you found out the hard way, love to know. Love to know. I'm not sure if you found out the hard way about I'd love it if you can explain that a little more. Okay. So, I invite you to continue to chat, maybe chat with each other as I'm talking, but I'm going to move on to the stages of deconditioning. So, the stages of deconditioning lead you into recognizing what is conditioning, leads you into, I mean, it's like important for you to know how you're being conditioned in order for you to know, um, in order for you to be able to release it, um, that you're not meant to work all day. Yes. So it's important for you to know how you're being conditioned so that you can uh, begin to release that and reform, and reform how you are, how you be, how you relate to that. And as Maya said, that comes through recognizing what you're taking in from the outside through your openness. And anytime any of these experiences that I'm going to talk about next come up, I want you to begin to recognize that you are experiencing the repercussions of your conditioning. So in traditional human design, getting back to that not self theme, when you are feeling your not self theme, you are experiencing the repercussions of your conditioning. It's like your guidepost, your signpost. So projectors, it's bitterness. Manifestors, it's anger, either your anger or someone else's anger directed toward you. Uh, Reflectors, it's disappointment. And generators and manifesting generators, it's frustration. I want to kind of broaden that out because sometimes, there's other stuff that's going on that you may recognize a little more easily than these little pinpoint experiences. So, whenever you're experiencing these things, let it be a light bulb to you to indicate that I need to look at how I'm being conditioned at this point. So, when you're experiencing guilt, when you're feeling that sense of obligation, when you're worrying about your past or your future, um, when you're worrying about your life in general, when you have unfounded fears. And what I mean by unfounded fears is when there's no bear chasing you and you are feeling a lot of fear, you are experiencing the repercussions of your conditioning. Um, Self-doubt, insecurity, pressure to perform, pressure to live up to somebody else's expectations, pressure to live up to society's expectations, the compulsion to please other people at the expense of yourself, negative self-talk. And this is really that one that runs underneath, that once you get a hold of it, that's the key to freeing your mind, is really being aware of your negative self-talk, because your negative self-talk is never an expression of your true self, of your true nature. And that feeling of desperation. So I want you to, for a moment, to get into this place where you can really feel grounded in your body. And I want to take you through an experience of what it feels like to be in your true nature experience. And if you aren't feeling like you're there yet, I want you to just imagine this. Okay. So feel your feet on the ground. And you may want to stand up for this. I want you to feel yourself grounded and stable within your body, and imagine or tap into that feeling of knowing that this is me. I am everything that I need to be. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I am entirely, sorry, I am entirely um, supported with all of the resources that I need to live the life that I am here to live. And I totally and completely trust myself, in myself who is having this human experience, and myself that is connected to the source of all support, that I have at my access everything. And feel how that stabilizes you. Feel how that empowers you on a certain level. And then now tap into whatever of those experiences that I mentioned that you resonate with or have resonated with in the past, if you're not feeling that now. Let's say desperation, or feelings of obligation, or worrying about, what's to become of me, or, how am I living my life the right way? And feel how that sort of weakens that stance within you, as though that energy is being pulled out. And when I tap into that, it's almost like it feels like there are drain plugs. Like if I get into that place where I feel obligated to do something, there's a drain that opens up and drains out some of my life force. That's what it feels like to me. So feel how that feels. Feel how it feels to be in this place where, um, these forces are kind of draining stuff out of you. And that's conditioning. Like that's where you are taking your energy and actually moving it into those places. If I can get my cat off my charts here, moving it into these places where you don't actually live. And if you've seen that video that I've done on being at home, or I forget what it was, but these are places where you don't live full time. And you're throwing, it's almost like your energy is being, you're throwing or directing your energy somewhere out there, or somewhere over where you don't have any traction. And that's what conditioning is like. So use these signposts, use these guideposts, and then, really begin to tap into how maybe these experiences of worry or obligation or guilt or desperation, or how the negative self-talk are leading you into your not self theme, like the bitterness or the anger or the disappointment or the frustration. So I hope you get a feel of how that works, or how I really want you to have a visceral feel of that. And I'm wondering how you've seen the effects of conditioning play out in your life. So if you want to chat that in, feel free to. And Bernice says, yeah, true, leaking. Yep. You're welcome, Bonnie. Yeah. So let's talk about these steps to hold on. I'm still working with this lone card that's misplaced. Here we go. The stages of deconditioning. So I've identified 3 stages to deconditioning. There is stage 1, and this is my experience. I really want you to share your experience with this as well. Stage 1 is known as, or what I call, initiation. You get your chart. Someone introduces you to your chart, or you're doing a Google search and you stumble on human design. You get your chart, you read about your strategy and your authority, and you start to understand what that's about, and you start to put it into practice. It's not unusual if you have been living in that not self space for a period of time, or for your entire life up to that point. If you've been really radically living in these spaces where your energy gets drained, where you're, feeling all of those things that we talked about, the guilt and worry and all of that, and not really seeing where your power is, it's not unusual for your life to fall apart. And I say that I'm attempting to say that with the utmost gentleness as possible, because it's not an easy experience. And I've lived it. I survived it, and I'm thriving past it. And it's something that when you're in it, it's like everything begins to fall apart. And my theory around that is that place where you begin to follow your strategy and authority is the first tap of the tuning fork of, okay, we're going to bring you back into resonance with the frequency that you're meant to experience through your magnetism and magnetic monopole. Everything else begins to not match. And for me, that meant, well, I was already kind of in the throes of this, and I call it the tower moment. And I'll show you, my cat's sitting on this, but this is, if you've ever seen the tarot deck and the tower card in the tarot deck, this was my life. And it was actually happening before. Everything was starting to fall apart. My first marriage was falling apart. I was extremely burned out, and I was in free fall for a lot of years. And someone actually, human design tried to come into my life a couple of times during this time when things were starting to break apart, and this radical change was happening, and I was into this awakening. And the time when it stuck was time when the rest of it began to fall apart. The divorce, moving in with my parents, uh, going bankrupt, not really having any of my old life, moving, having to move, or choosing to move really, but not really being removed from the entire life that I used to have. And I have worked with clients over and over and over again who have gone through this experience. And if you haven't, or if you aren't, that's okay. That's great. But I'm just telling you that that's what can happen, are these tower moments where your life being being retuned and being reformed, is taking, in the process of taking a different form. And whenever there is radical change, there is radical chaos. And I think that the process of surrendering to that as much as you possibly can helps in the long run to attune you faster to your frequency than or not faster, because it still takes 7 years, and I wouldn't have said that 2 years, 3 years in, but it still takes 7 years to look up and realize that you're in a different place. But it helps to ease, it helps to give you what you need to have, it points you in the direction of where you need to anchor yourself, whether it be in a deep rooted sense of spirituality. For me, that's what it was. It's like my spiritual growth expanded in ways that I didn't even know it could. I had to really trust. There were times when I had no money at all, and there were humbling times when who I thought I was, and the big important person in my ego that I thought I was, had no traction and no power in my life. And I had to surrender to that and trust that what was good for me was coming to me, and I would be okay. And I'm here in this body, and I'm more than okay. So if you're in those tower moments, know that. Know that the more that you do that, the more that you work on your own growth, the more that you release and surrender what you thought was important to you, and you allow and open up to let life show you what is truly important for you. It will ease the process, and it will put you in touch with what it is that you need, and how it is that you need to grow in order to move through the tower moments in a more graceful way. Yeah, the lightning strike. Yeah, that's the card I pulled. What's the message of my uh, open head center? The message of your open head center, I'm not sure if you're asking that question, Maya, or not, but when you say that, the message of my open head center is to let go of what you think you're inspired by, and allow yourself to see the full spectrum of inspiration without having to act on it until your strategy and authority pull you in that way. Tapping the tuning fork totally resonates, pun intended. Surrendering over and over, recalibrate. Started experimenting with silence. Yeah, with the undefined throat. Yeah, between bliss and difficult when faced with family members with a defined throat. Yeah, it's a place of mastery, to work with these places where you're undefined, and other people around you are defined. Release the pent-up energy. Yeah, the silence brings stillness and calmness into the solar plexus, also undefined. That was the question you asked your tarot deck. Oh, cool. When you got the tower. Let it all fall. Yeah. Yeah, so these are places, if you're experiencing the tower experience, or the a burnout or things falling away? I've had clients tell me, their boyfriends broke up with them, and it was at the week after they got their first human design reading. And it was because of, deep down inside, there was this recognition that that was not the right relationship. And then all of a sudden, circumstances in their life made it so that the other person broke up with them. Yeah. Yeah. And these are places, opportunities and places where you're really getting to see the surrender. It's facilitating the process of surrendering, and the healing process. And we'll talk about in the steps, what you're doing during this time. But I'm going to move on to the second stage, which is that stage around midway through, about the 3.5 years into the process. And I'll tell you, when I was 3.5 years into the process, I was feeling a lot more empowered. I was feeling like I had my feet on the ground, and I was feeling like, in a lot of ways, I was very, very aligned with my truth, with who I am, with how I need to manage my energy. And I was feeling very different. What you may feel during this time is that you're going to look back over your life and realize that there's a marked release of resistance. Like, you're no longer feeling those not self themes of anger or bitterness or frustration or disappointment. And you're going to feel this increased sense of personal power, and more ease in your life, less people resisting you, maybe more flow and more openness in the resources that are coming to you. And it's going to feel like, a lot of times, like, what more is there? Like, you're going to look up and go, man, I'm a different person than what I was 3.5 years ago. What more is there? And you're going to feel, perhaps on a certain level, like you've arrived. So I'm here to tell you that there's actually more. And when you get to this point where there is less resistance, where there is more flow in your life, where you feel like you have a good sense of who you are and who you're not, your life is going to continue beyond that to show you those places, where you can align even more, those places where you need to release even more. And that carries you into stage 3, where you get to about 7 years, like, stay from about 3.5 to 7. There's a lot of times a shift in maybe what you do for a living, and I'm speaking generally here, so take what you need here. And those of you who are, Carrie, if you want to chime in, if you're still here, into that 4 to 5 year time frame, I'd love to know what you've experienced what you've experienced from, like, 1 to 3.5 years in, and then where you are now and what you're seeing is changing. But there is more. A life starts to really begin to click in. And if it's not clicking in, you're going to be shown what you need to do inside yourself so that it needs to click in, what needs to be healed, what aspects of the ego and who you thought you were that still needs to be surrendered. And that was kind of where I was. I would say, let's see, 9. Uh, um, Toward the end of, coming into the 7th year, coming into like 6 years, 5, 6 years, I had that last bout of, well, don't say last, because I'm not going to say last, because it could happen again, because it is an ongoing process. This bout of really seeing who I'm not in Technicolor. And maybe this is a third line profile talking, but I was invited into a real estate career around, let's see, it was about 6 years into my experiment. I was invited into a real estate career, and like, it was correct, so I went into it, but I went into it as an experiment. Um, and I learned a lot about who I am and who I need to be to get to the next level of my business. And I'm not talking about my real estate business. And then when I was able to when I got everything that I needed from that experience ended. I was invited out of my real estate career. And it was as quick as that. And it was kind of like for me that last bout of seeing who I'm not, really seeing who I'm not in the physical world, in the 3D human business world, who I am not. And by seeing who I was not, I was able to really let go of that. And from that, really understand and continue to increase my awareness around what I'm truly about, what I truly have to contribute, how I'm here to deliver it. And all of those insights and all of those things came from that experience along the way, coming into that 7-year marker where I had to really let go of all of those things that I thought I was about, all of those last bastions of preconceived notions about who I am. So that may or may not happen for you, but there's going to be this deepening of understanding and learning about who you are and who you're not. And along with that, a deepening sense of empowerment. You're really going to see, at midway through, you do kind of know what you're about and what you're not, that you're really going to see that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. And you might even be surprised about what emerges and what, as a generator or manifesting generator, what you're responding to, or projector, what you're being invited into. And your taste may change, your ambitions may change, and at that point there may actually be some some sense of maybe like the shadows of memories of the tower moments. Some people that I've worked with who are that far along sometimes are questioning, who am I now? What am I about now? And at each of these stages, there is a need at times to have certain types of support. So let's see, Carrie, you've noticed as you release more of your conditioned thought patterns that you continue to feel a release of pressure with each one. You're not chasing approval, validation the way that you had before. Yeah. There comes this point where you really know that you don't have to do anything about that pressure, and you can just let it be, and it's no longer personal in that respect. You don't have to reach out for anything. So Okay, so now we're at this card, the steps to deconditioning. And again, this is my strategic mind talking. I'm very linear in the way that I see things. Uh, and I'm laying this out in a way where you may have a different experience of these different steps of what you're doing at certain times. So just take it in the way that you need to take it in. So basically what I'm talking about here are the optimal times during your deconditioning process when you want to study or explore certain things about your chart and your design. And there are also the times or the things that you will most likely do as you explore and as you continue your journey and experiment. I don't have the open ajna. I have a defined head and ajna. Oh, that was, oh, Maya, that was for you, for Carrie. Cool. Oh, keep talking. I love it when you guys talk among each other. So the steps to deconditioning the steps to deconditioning point to general experiences and the optimal points of focus at specific times or particular times in this journey through these stages. So step one typically happens when you're introduced to your chart. And you're either introduced by getting a reading or you're doing your own study, but it's when you've really engaged in the whole sinking into your strategy and your decision-making authority. This alone, strategy and authority, will recondition you or decondition you. And if that's all you do, you get a handle on your strategy and you get a handle on your authority, and that's all you do through the 7 years, you're going to fully awaken to being a whole new being on the other end. However, and this is me, this is not Ra's work, so I'm going to put the caveat on there. I've discovered and noticed that there's a lot of space, especially for those of you who have a strategy to wait, especially those of you who have a strategy to wait for invitations, and even those of you generators and manifesting generators who are waiting to respond. There's a lot of space in there sometimes, and reflectors, of course, you're waiting as well. But there's a lot of space in there where the not self mind, where the negative self talk, where the questions come in, that where you may need extra support to deal with those kinds of things, to understand or get more grounded in how you take your steps forward into this journey, into this experience. But if you're doing your strategy and your authority and you're white knuckling it through the process, for some of you who are coming in with the tower experience, it can feel like that. But if you're moving through that, generators and manifestors kind of tend to get it pretty quickly. Generators, manifesting generators, once you know how you're responding, once you know what your authority is about, and you start to work with that, it's not long before all kinds of opportunities come to you that you're responding to, and you're kind of off step by step by step working with that. Manifestor is the same thing. Once you understand what your authority is and you get very clear on what it is that you're here to initiate and do, and you get into the practice of informing, it doesn't take very long for you in most cases. But if you've had a tower moment, or if you've accumulated a lot of repercussions from your past not self experiences, this step one of just experimenting with strategy and authority may not actually be enough for you. And you may need other types of support along the lines, for managing the stress and the angst and the confusion, and what crops up from the not self in these spaces where you're waiting, or you may need professional help to clean up some of the consequences of your not self decisions and actions. So some of this support can come in the way of can come in human design ways, getting a reading, or, really studying about your design and understanding what your strategy and authority is. But some of it has to do with getting specific types of healing, coaching, counseling, legal advice to clear up your karma, clear up what you've done, a shoulder to cry on, space to be you, carving out that space, maybe even living somewhere temporarily to have space to just be you. Someone to help you create more supportive self-care practices, and even maybe health professionals. And I'm wondering, for those of you who are in this stage of in this stage of practicing your strategy and authority, if you resonate with needing that outside support of other things to kind of help you stay grounded as you move through this process of settling into your strategy and authority. And, if this is kind of new to you, take a moment to pause and take a moment to consider what kind of support you really need, and maybe make some notes around that. I know for me, at the very beginning, I needed a coach. My coach who introduced me to human design really kept me grounded for a while. And I needed a couple of lawyers, a divorce lawyer and a bankruptcy lawyer. I needed a real estate agent to help sell the house from my divorce. I needed someone to take my belongings and put them in their consignment shop so I would have a stream of income, the things that I was letting go of so that I would have a stream of income. Um, I needed, oh, and I also needed retraining, because I'd burned out in massage, and I was looking to learn some things to develop my own intuition and spirituality and to work with people in a different way. So, I got some intuitive training and psychic training and all kinds of stuff along the way. And also, I needed training and I needed to learn how to live a little differently in my life. Yeah, cleaning up the consequences. Yeah, it really is that. If you come to this human design thing in midlife and you're having this tower moment, there are a lot of consequences. Um, okay, great. And your kitchen. I missed that. Okay. Cleaning up your consequences, and the kitchen. Yeah, sometimes you need support in that too. So who knows? Um, So, what you're doing in step one is you're getting a good understanding of your strategy and authority. You're understanding, if you have a strategy to wait, what you're doing while you're waiting. For projectors, you're doing your life. You're doing your healing. You're doing whatever it is that you need to do to get yourself grounded, in this new paradigm of what it means to be you. And for all types, it's about that as well, getting grounded in the new paradigm of what it means to be you. I suggest that you get a reading if you possibly can as soon as possible, when you discover your design, to get these grounding pieces into place. And that's why I've offered that 1,200 subscriber buy one get one special, and I'll talk about that again at the end, because I know a lot of you have found me because you may be in the beginning stages of your journey and you need some support and help, and maybe you don't have the full resources for a $200 or $300 reading package or whatever. If you do, great, I'd be happy to help you. But some of you really do need to have your questions answered. And that's why I'm doing this workshop as well, to help you to get some more insight and get some of your questions answered so that you can proceed on solid footing and grounding. And you're also in step one getting all the other kind of support that you need and really learning about, or surrendering to knowing, or the acceptance of the kind of support that you need to move forward and to be truly who you are. So step two of the deconditioning process starts after the initiation phase and before that 3.5 year midpoint in general. Like some of you, step two may start right after your reading. So let's say you got online, you got your chart, you found someone to do your reading, whether it's me or somebody else. You get your reading and you go, oh, I get it. My sacral works this way. Oh, I've been doing that. And then you're off to the races with step two, right? But for some, it comes somewhere in that between the midpoint of that 7-year deconditioning marker and the beginning. And it continues throughout the 7 years and beyond. And this is what Maya was asking at the beginning. This is about how your openness reveals itself to you. So you'll notice that as you begin to observe, and as you're creating this space to observe how you operate, that the conditioned patterns that manifest themselves in guilt and all of that stuff. You're not self-theme, you're the desperation, the worry, whatever it is, that will begin to reveal themselves to you through your open and undefined areas, and specifically through your open and undefined centers. So as you're studying your chart, after you get a reading, it's always good to then proceed to understand the conditioning patterns in your undefined centers, because this is where you're really going to see it, where most of you are really going to see it. A lot of times, one prominent theme will come up at a time, and that will help you to kind of unravel and understand, you know, how that center, undefined center works, how you're taking in conditioning, how you react to it, what your pattern is, and then develop the process, the new pattern. Let the new pattern form, that helps you to release and move beyond that conditioning, or helps you to at least recognize it, because we're all being conditioned through our openness all the time. So it helps you to recognize it with greater awareness, so that you give yourself more personal choice about what you do about it. So for me, the first center that revealed itself to me was the sacral center. And being a projector, I imagine, and those of you who are projectors, or if you're another type, if you're aware of what center revealed itself to you first in terms of its openness and how you're taking in the conditioning, I'd love for you to share it. That was the sacral center, because I was burned out, and the sacral center is a center for work. And I was burned out on work. I had overused or reached out and amplified, taken in and amplified work energy to the extreme for 44 years of my life, 45, I don't know how many, 45 years of my life. And it was pretty obvious that the conditioning in my sacral center was very, very obvious. So, yeah, so what centers are revealing themselves to you at this point? Um, And what are you seeing about your conditioning through your undefined centers? And I'm going to also ask you, because I know there are people who are new to human design. Um, you know, what are you feeling that you recognize as conditioning? And what questions do you have about how that relates to your centers? Let's put it that way. Let's see. Um, what kind of a conversation we can have about that. Okay, I'm going to take a drink here. So bear with me. You guys are doing great. I'm so delighted that all of you, it looks like just about all of you have shown up for this. So thank you, all of you who signed up. I appreciate you sticking with me. It's a little longer than I thought it would be, but that's because of my undefined sacral center, and sometimes I don't know when enough is enough. Same at the sacral center. Yeah, burnout. Yeah. So, so what are you doing in step 2? As your openness, the conditioning in your openness reveals itself to you. You're learning about your undefined centers. I mean, that's how you can really get grounded in this process of deepening your journey, deepening your experiences. And you're observing how the conditioning affects you through your openness, as we talked about. It's also a good time to begin to look at your relationships through composite charts and readings, and to understand how the transits affect your open centers and affect you in certain ways, because this really gives you that depth of understanding and awareness about what you're taking in, and how you're living out these conditioned and adaptive behavior patterns and thought patterns, and what triggers them. Uh, so I don't usually recommend that you do a relationship reading when you might need to do it in your tower moment, but it's really more like a stage 2 kind of a thing, where you've gotten clear about strategy and authority, and now you're ready to bring in some more information about how you operate. And now you're ready to ground this understanding of so-called not self, or how you dance with other people and how you're affected by other people. So I usually recommend that you really kind of understand you first, and then understand how uh, you can get off the track of not being you, or get onto the track of not being you. Okay. Um, so let's see, we've got some questions here. Solar plexus undefined, realizing I was not emotional. Fantastic news. Yes. That's the other one. That was actually the second one that came to my awareness as well. The undefined emotional solar plexus, and really understanding that when I had those big surges of emotions, that they weren't mine. And I still work with that, but I'm so much better at it 10 years into this. Yeah, fantastic news. If you're have an undefined emotional solar plexus, that those emotions are not yours. Um, New to this, projector 2-4, feel stuck between what I have created and what I want to learn to let go of, to make room for waiting. Yeah. Yeah. So Bonnie, you're in that step one place of really understanding what it means to wait, and really understanding what you're doing while you're waiting, which is pretty much living your life, and doing the cleanup work, and doing the work to uh, the inner work, to really be good at recognizing yourself. And we also have natural, true, who we are when we're alone. Yeah, good point. Um the her partner has an undefined solar plexus, and she's finding you're finding that you can, when you're alone, you can be true to yourselves. And oh yeah, and be connected. Do you have the are you have a 2 in your profile? I'm just curious. And Robin has an undefined root and spleen. Yeah. And Robin, I'm going to just encourage you to be with that pressure without feeling like you have to do anything about it, and to begin to understand that 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 pressure is what is probably keeping you from uh, truly emitting that frequency of magnetism, that of who you are. And pressure, having an undefined root is hard. I don't have an undefined root, but I know the pressure that I have with a defined root, and I can imagine what it's like if you're undefined and you're amplifying that. It's a challenge for me as a projector to have an undefined root and have that pressure, and to have it defined, or to have a defined root and have that pressure, but to have it undefined um, is like that pressure on steroids. So, it's one of those places where it takes great presence, and great grounding for you to really know what your true next steps are, and pressure, and the release of that pressure enough to know, um, let's see, in your root, what it is that you need, how you don't need to rush. So the recognition that you don't need to rush is something that's going to help you to restore your power. So it's almost like um, letting yourself off the hook in a way, of understanding that I can just sit here and put my feet up, because when I'm feeling this pressure to rush into something, I know that that's going to push me into something that ultimately isn't going to be good for me. And that's a way that you can call back that power, call back your power, and say, this is where I draw the boundary. I am not going to be intimidated by that outside root pressure. So I hope that helps you. And spleen too, there's that sense of, in the undefined spleen, of the insecurity that can happen. What's going to happen to me? Those amplified survival fears. And again, are you going to allow yourself to be intimidated by that, or to be pushed around by energy that isn't even yours? Or are you going to let yourself off the hook and stand in your power and allow yourself to not succumb to that? Undefined solar plexus, and realize that as a family unit, that's why we have been in no or low drama. Oh yeah, you should see the drama in my household when my husband's, not so much anymore, but when he's low on his emotional wave and I'm amplifying it. But okay, we've both come to understand that dynamic now, so it's pretty cool when he explains it to other people. Yeah, okay. Oh, you have a defined root and a defined spleen. So you have a consistent sense of this pressure to do things, and a consistent way that you're experiencing survival fears. Yeah. Um, Same thing, defined spleen, defined root. Not the same thing as your undefined experience, but it's very much about uh, feeling the timing in your root and in your spleen, and staying true to the timing in the moment. But also understanding, like, I don't remember what your open centers are, Robin, but I'm wondering if you've got an experience through your open centers of how conditioning is showing up for you. So let's move on, because we're an hour and a half into this, and this was only supposed to be an hour. I'm on 19 out of 24. I promise I'll be done soon. Step 3. This is an ongoing step. And it kind of kicks in. It kicks in after you're grounded and living in your design, or you're grounded in your strategy and authority, and you're kind of, if you've gone through that tower moment, you've kind of moved past that. There's some ease and some stability in your life, and it comes after that. So this is, it comes after you've recovered from burnout. It comes after you've surrendered to this process. Maybe you've seen some of the conditioning patterns in your open centers, and I'm going to weave this in, Robin, with everything else being open. You've seen how you emotionally react to things. I'm using Robin as an example here, her being open to everything other than the spleen and the root. You're using how you're reacting emotionally, how you're maybe feeling that wavering of your own self-love, your own self-value, your own self-worth. Maybe at times it feels overinflated or underinflated. You're reacting to that, maybe thinking that you need to hold on to love, you need to prove yourself, you need to maybe put up guards against your heart, because love comes and goes. Maybe trying to hold on to one identity, because it makes you feel more secure, and whatever self-talk is going on with that. Seeing that who you really are is not anything about who you thought you were. Your throat being, trying to express yourself and be seen and be heard and be recognized and get the right job and do the right things, so that you can be so that you can survive in the way that your mind is telling you that you need to survive, and then really seeing what the mind is telling you. that is creating worry and stress and misalignment and lack of ease and bitterness and whatever else keeps you from really feeling rooted in your root center and your center for vitality, which is your spleen. So once you get beyond all that, then and you've worked with that for a while, uh, and you recover. Oh, and I forgot the sacral too. I forgot the sacral center is open. So, and you recovered from burnout, and using Robin as the example, um, and you've surrendered to all of this stuff that you thought you were, that you've been taken in your openness, and if you're feeling some of the stability and power within you to say, this is who I am waiting for the right moment, and everything else is going to just have to go by the wayside. And you're trusting that, and you're seeing your new self emerge, your new, more truly attuned self emerge. Then what happens is what I call up leveling. And I describe that process of for me, of having gone into real estate and really seeing who I am not, and from there understanding who I am. That was part of the up leveling process. So it doesn't mean when you get to this place where you really feel this stability within you and this sense of power and knowing who you are within you, that you don't have challenges, because you're always going to up level and evolve as you move through those, or those challenges are going to come to you, so that you can up level and evolve your experience of your design. And for me, this up leveling process has taken me into places. And for those of you, for those of you who resonate with the up leveling, where you feel stable, where you feel empowered, where you have a good sense of who you are, and you've let go of a lot of your patterns around trying to be someone that you're not. How are you experiencing this up leveling aspect? For me, it's been about witnessing the unfolding of my purpose in new ways. Like, being totally, I don't know why I was surprised, because I was invited by my husband to move to this property, and all of that was sort of facilitated. I advised a bit, but and the orchard and all of that. It's a process that I guide, but he did the manual labor, most of the manual labor on that, and it has unfolded or opened up a whole new avenue of purpose and service for me that wasn't available in the past. And it was kind of, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, if you had said this is what I'd be doing, I wouldn't have resonated with it at all. And it's so right, so right. And I know that because every time I go out into my environment, I meet someone who is like-minded. And that wasn't happening 3.5 years ago. And it's been happening more and more and more. And with this shift into this new environment, it has been happening in technicolor, so to speak. And also for me, it's been about reworking the structures of my business to better suit who I am. So if you've been on my website lately, you know that you've seen that I've restructured the way I do readings to give myself more flexibility, more spontaneity, to really be able to come in, shine a light on something, and move on, to have an impact in the way that I need to have an impact, to share what I need to share when I'm invited to share it, and to move on and to experience something else. That's for me as a 3/5 splenic projector. For you, it may be something else. And and the up leveling also can come in the change of a lifestyle, people, friends, etc. And it may be that you do change your lifestyle. It may be that you are invited into a different environment. You are invited to do a different career, or I shouldn't say all of you, because I know that they're generators, or by way of your strategy and authority, you enter into something that really surprises you, that changes your lifestyle and changes the people that you're around. And the point that I want to make with that is that it all starts in here. It all starts with that inner alignment, that your strategy and authority are, and all of the things that you do in step one of getting that support that you need are helping you, helping you, are facilitating your own alignment, so that the other stuff is attracted to you and you respond to it, or it becomes clear that you need to act on it if you're a manifester, or you're invited into it if you're a projector. And reflectors have their own process of attuning to it through the moon. So it all starts with that alignment, and then through the alignment, at some point there seems to be this need to up level, to get better structures, to it, you know, get better processes, or upgrade the way that your life supports you in certain ways. And for me, those supports have been like deeper healing. Like right now, I'm really deep into the ancestral, what I've inherited through my ancestral patterning, which is on this chart. And it's really going into like my gene keys, and my hologenetic profile that you can get through the gene keys. And I don't really recommend that you do that until you're really pretty stable in your design, because if you started in this design path, you want to continue in this design path to get your footing and your grounding about your blueprint before you go and you start working with what are your deep ancestral patterns that you need to contemplate and overturn. If you started there, go there. But if you've been called to your chart, I think Richard Rudd, who created Gene Keys, actually put out a video on that. And I kind of agree with him that if you've been called to do human design for a while, and don't add in the complication of another system until you've gotten everything that you need to get out of the first system. And then the other things that for me have been just getting business coaching from someone who gets my energy type, and then integrating my intuitive skills at a higher level. So, you know, that's my journey. So I'm wondering what your journey is, or if you're in that place of up leveling, what your process is, what you need for support. And I think we're at the end of the cards. So to recap, there are those stages of the tower moment, and then moving into, if you don't have the tower moment, there's a stage where you realize that you want to go into this strategy and authority more deeply. Then there is a stage where you get about midway through your experiment, and you start to see less resistance. And then there's a stage about 7 years in where life really starts to click. And then along the way, there are these steps where you really get introduced to your chart. You start to experiment with your strategy and authority. You get the support that you need to get your footing with your design, to heal from all of the consequences of your not self. And then you move in from there into the step where when you're really grounded, where you start to look at your energy centers, the openness in your chart, and you start to really increase your awareness around your energy centers, and how you're affected. The conditioning affects you through your open and undefined centers. And then after you've moved through that for a while, you're going to discover that there's the need to up level. and to do healing on a greater level, to get a different quality or different type of support than you needed in the beginning. And Dorothy says, I'm trying not to do things that I don't have the will to do, because you're an ego manifester. The struggles are, I am doing nothing a lot of the time, and it doesn't go over well with others in my life. Well, as an ego manifester, Dorothy, I'm wondering if you, um, how informing has helped with that. And if it has helped to inform people about what it is that you're doing. Um, and for all the energy types, if people aren't getting you and you're following your strategy and you're really listening to yourself, and in your case, Dorothy, you're really following, and only initiating the things that you really have the will to do, and they're not getting you, it either means that they need to upgrade and realign, or they need to realign to who they truly are, and then you'll become a match again. Or it may mean that these people, are you're moving out of their space, and eventually you will initiate other actions that will allow you to be among the people that you really can have impact on. So it's something to watch and see. Yeah, life clicking in stage 2. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. So I have talked way over my limit. And my open throat is starting to feel it. So I'm going to close it up here and just remind you that when you get the follow-up email, the thank you email, the thank you email for being here with me, that you will get the information about the 1200 celebration 2-session support package, the buy one, get one free package of 2 45-minute sessions. So keep your eye out for that. And you'll probably, since you signed up for this, you'll probably get my next newsletter. And there's also a birthday package in there. Try not to get them confused. You're welcome to do that too, but it's actually for my energy healing work. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that they're 2 separate things. And I so appreciate all of you. And it's been a pleasure to be here with you today. This was a lot of content. It was more than I thought I was going to do. I'm glad that we didn't try to do decision-making authority as well with this. And I hope that you got some things from it that will help you. And I encourage you to, since you have the link, to come back to this over and over. And at some point, I will probably make bits and pieces available to it in some other way that you may want to participate in. But just keep following me and you'll get the information on that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm going to end for now. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk again soon. Bye.